Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sutta study with Bhante Suddazo. So this morning we will be studying the Kāmada Sutta, Samyutta Nikaya 2.6. Welcome to Elaine, Michael, who already has a question, but we'll get to it after we go through the Sutta with Bhante. Hello, Geeta. Hello, Kevin. Ella, welcome. Galaxy, welcome. Jens, Bradley, and Yanni. Good to see you all this morning. And of course, welcome to Bhante Suddazo, our favorite monk. All right, so I'll pass it on to Bhante.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Good morning, friends. So, as mentioned this morning, we'll be looking at the Kāmada Sutta. This is quite a short discourse, but it's one that I've wanted to bring forward for quite some time. Because people often lament that Buddhist practice is very hard to do. And that's exactly how this discourse begins. So I think it's quite relevant to see what the Buddha said when people would complain that Buddhist practice is difficult. At Savatthi, while standing to one side, the young Deva Kāmada said to the Blessed One, "Hard to do, Blessed One. Hard to do, Blessed One." And the Buddha replies, "They do even what is hard to do, Kāmada," said the Blessed One. "The trainees with virtue and mental unification, self-stabilized and committed to homelessness, for it is contentment that brings pleasure." So a few comments just to start with. So first off, the Deva's name, Kāmada, means giver of sensuality. So that might give you some sense as to his personality. So in many cases, the names that people have in the Pali Suttas are reflections of their personalities. So it's unclear whether this is the person's actual name or whether it's a nickname that was given to them based upon their personality traits and tendencies. In this case, I'm inclined to think that this name is meant to reflect the Deva's personality. And he's lamenting that Buddhist practice is hard to do. It's not easy. But the Buddha says, they do even what is hard to do. So we recognize, yes, Buddhist practice is difficult, it's challenging, but it's worth doing. And even though it's difficult, we do it anyway. We don't allow its difficulty to hold us down. One thing that I find worth reflecting on is that at some point throughout the countless lives that we've lived, at some point we have experienced every imaginable form of existence except for that of an awakened being. We've experienced everything in samsara except for awakening. We've had everything else, and none of it satisfied us. So we know what strategy doesn't work because we've already tried it. So we might as well try something that we've never tried before. Even though it's difficult, it's better to do something difficult that might bring rewards than to do what's easy, which we already know doesn't work. So the Buddha says, they do even what is hard to do, the trainees with virtue and mental unification. So mental unification here is samadhi. So he's saying those who are in training, who have sila and samadhi, that's what he's saying. Self-stabilized and committed to homelessness. So committed to homelessness, this term homelessness in Pali, anagarya, It doesn't necessarily literally mean that you're homeless in the sense of living on the streets, but rather it's more indicating a state of mind of not being stuck on any one abode, not being stuck on a particular dwelling place. And in the suttas, this is used both literally and figuratively. So, literally, in the sense that one is willing to get up and move at a moment's notice. So, one is not attached to one's physical dwelling place, whether it's a kuti, or whether it's a monastery, or whether it's a house, or whether it's a tent, or whatever it is. So, one is not attached to one's physical dwelling place. But it's also used to mean not settling on any particular state of mind, any particular viewpoint, any particular self-identity. That also is considered one's home, one's dwelling place, one's the place where one is settled. So one is to constantly leave behind the fixed viewpoint that we're in, to leave behind the form of self-identity that we've established. So always to be willing to drop whatever we've settled in as being absolute and certain and real. And then the Buddha makes the statement, for it is contentment that brings pleasure. And this also, I think, is directly aimed at Kāmada. So if we take Kāmada's name literally, then apparently he's a sensualist. So the Buddha is pointing out, well, you like pleasure, you like happiness. Well, contentment is what really brings pleasure. Contentment is what really brings happiness. So contentment is one of these critical qualities of Buddhist practice that we seek to develop. And it's a major element of monastic life. So monastic life, we learn how to be contented with little, contented with the bare necessities, contented with just having enough to get by, contented with whatever is offered to us, not seeking more. So we learn to be content. And what one discovers is that contentment is an extremely peaceful state of mind, a joyful state of mind. Because in contentment, one temporarily sets aside one's desires, one's yearnings, one's discontent, one's dissatisfaction, and recognizes that we already have everything we need to be happy. But Kāmada, of course, says, it is so hard to get, Blessed One, contentment. It's so hard to get contentment. But actually, it's not hard. You just stop wanting things, and contentment is already there. But the Buddha says, they get even what is hard to get, Kāmada, said the Blessed One. Those who enjoy a peaceful mind, those who by day and by night enjoy developing the mind. So he's saying that I really like here actually that the Buddha admits Kāmada's point. The Buddha admits, it's hard to do this practice. It's hard to gain contentment. Yeah, that's true. We do it anyway. We don't let its difficulty put us off. We think it's hard to be content. Well, okay, it's hard, but it's worth doing. So we do it. And he says, those who enjoy a peaceful mind. This also is a very important statement because we're usually used to enjoying excitement and entertainment. So whether that's watching shows or thinking about interesting ideas or reading books or daydreaming, or we're used to filling the mind with interesting things, doing exciting things. And sometimes we even use Dhamma in this way. So constantly thinking and rolling around the Dhamma in our mind, not necessarily as a way of trying to understand it, but just as a way of filling our time. just as a way of keeping our mind moving. So there's this addiction to a moving mind, addiction to an active mind. But we're trying to develop a peaceful mind. We're trying to develop a mind which is clear and aware, but which is steady, still, and stable. A mind which is unshakable. A mind which is undisturbable. So the Buddha says, those who enjoy a peaceful mind. So we should make an effort to learn how to enjoy the peaceful mind. So watching our mind and noticing when it is peaceful, noticing when it is settled, noticing when it is serene. And when the mind is peaceful, settled, and serene, then to notice how pleasant it is. To actively point out to ourselves how pleasant it is when the mind is peaceful, steady, and still. So starting to build up that positive association, that positive recollection of the joyfulness, the pleasantness of a peaceful mind. So that then the next time our mind is active and we're feeling a little bit agitated, then we remind ourselves, no, wait, a peaceful mind. A peaceful mind is really enjoyable. Maybe I should try to put down this activity that I'm engaged in, to set aside this thinking and this disturbance of mind, and allow the mind to be peaceful again. And he said, and the Buddha says, those who by day and by night enjoy developing the mind. So the word translated here as developing is bhavana. So developing is a very literal translation of bhavana, but bhavana also is commonly used to mean meditation practice. So of course we work on developing our mind in all activities, in all postures, in all things that we do throughout the day. So whether we're washing the dishes or sweeping the floor or shoveling dirt or whatever it is we're doing, to practice mindfulness, practice samadhi, practice contentment, to practice the recognition of impermanence. So we're constantly developing the mind, no matter what activity we're in. And also practicing formal meditation. Also practicing sitting meditation, walking meditation, maybe standing meditation. So trying to cultivate samadhi, both during meditation practice and also during our daily activities. And Kāmada, once again, takes a bit of exception to this. He says, it is so hard to unify, Blessed One, the mind. So the word here is samadahang, which is the verb form of samadhi. So we could also verb the word samadhi and translate this, it is so hard to samadhi the mind. That would actually capture the Pali very directly if we just pretend that samadhi is a verb. Because the verb samadahang is just the verb form of the word samadhi. So he's saying it is so hard to samadhi the mind, so hard to unify the mind, so hard to get samadhi. Do you know how often I hear people say this to me? So hard to get samadhi, so difficult. And the Buddha says, they unify even what is hard to unify. Again, it's this word samadaham. So they bring to samadhi even what is hard to bring to samadhi. Said the Blessed One, those who enjoy peaceful faculties, the noble one proceeds. The noble ones proceed, having severed the net of mortality, Kāmada. So again, yeah, samadhi is not easy, but we do it anyway. It's not easy to develop a unified, stable, clear, peaceful, alert mind, but we do it anyway. First off, it's pleasant. It's actually very, very nice. A silent, peaceful, alert mind. It's a very pleasant state of mind. but also it's necessary for developing the deep insight, the deep self-awareness that we need in order to start breaking our defilements, in order to start breaking our attachments, in order to start dismantling our self-identity, which is what we need to do in order to break free of the cycle of birth and death. So the Buddha here says, the noble ones proceed having severed the net of mortality. So the net of mortality, so the trap of being caught in death and birth and death and birth and death and birth and death and birth, which we've been trapped in for longer than we can possibly remember. So if we want to break free of the net of mortality, to break free of the cycle of birth and death, then it's necessary to cultivate samadhi. So we really can't get away from this. We can't get away from the importance of samadhi, the importance of unifying and stabilizing the mind. And Kāmada gives one last shot in his Lamentations. He says, "It is so hard to follow, Blessed One, the rough path." And the Buddha replies, and I'm going to have to explain all of this because this is filled with puns, which are nearly impossible to translate. I did my best, but it's still going to have to be explained. So Kāmada says, "It is so hard to follow the rough path." And the Buddha replies, "Even though the path is rough, the noble ones follow it, Kāmada. Those who are not noble fall face down on the rough path. But for the noble ones, the path is smooth, for the noble are smooth amidst the rough." So this section here, it's running on the different meanings of the word samma and visama. So the word samma has several different meanings. So samma, its most straightforward meaning is peaceful. So peaceful. But it also has the meaning of smooth, the meaning of good, in the sense of morally good, so righteous, morally good. Level in the sense of even, so not rough or uneven. So when one is talking about a road, if one says that a road is visama, you're saying it's uneven, it's rough, it's not level, which makes it difficult to travel along. Or if you're saying that a person is visama, you're saying that they're unrighteous, they're not morally good, they're lacking in morality and mental purification, mental purity. Or you might be saying that they're not peaceful, that they're lacking the qualities of peace. So all of these meanings have relevance to this section. So when Kāmada is saying it is so hard to follow the rough path, he's saying that practicing Buddhism is rough in the sense that it's difficult, it's challenging. It's something that's not easy. It's something which is filled with obstacles and challenges. And again, I suspect that's because Kāmada is a greed type, and he's just like, seriously? You want me to like practice non-greed? You want me to practice contentment? You want me to stabilize and unify my mind? How is this possible? The path is challenging. It's too difficult. It's counterintuitive. So as Ayya Soma likes to point out, Buddhism is counterintuitive. It goes directly against the ways that we normally approach the world, the ways that we normally handle our lives. And it's interesting here, though, the Buddha says, first off, the Buddha admits his point. He says, even though the path is rough, so he's acknowledging, yeah, if you view it in that way, then the path looks rough. So if you view Buddhism through the lens of your defilements, through the lens of your preferences, through the lens of your delusions and misunderstandings, then it looks rough. It looks challenging. It seems difficult and counterintuitive. But as the Buddha points out here, he says, for the noble ones, the path is smooth. In other words, it has to do with our perspective. It has to do with how we look at it. Once one starts to reorient one's internal judgment system to appreciate wholesomeness, to appreciate peacefulness, to appreciate mental clarity, then suddenly the path no longer seems counterintuitive. In fact, it seems very straightforward. Suddenly the path no longer seems overwhelmingly difficult. In fact, it starts to seem quite natural. It's like, well, of course I would keep my mind peaceful. Why wouldn't I? Of course I'm not going to give into greed and hatred. Why would I? That would be counterintuitive to cultivate greed. Why, that would disturb my happiness. Why would I do that? Cultivate anger and hatred? That would disturb my happiness. Why would I do that? That would make no sense. So when one starts to take on the perspective of the noble ones, then Buddhist practice ceases to be counterintuitive and it actually becomes intuitive. It becomes natural. It becomes the course of living which makes the most sense. The course of living which seems like the proper way to do things. And also, again, picking up the other quality of this word samma, peacefulness, one also recognizes how peaceful it is. How peaceful it is to cultivate the Buddhist practice, how peaceful it is to cultivate the Buddhist states of mind. But the Buddha, again, he makes this point, those who are not noble fall face down on the rough path. So those who are not seeing Buddhism from the perspective of the noble ones, it seems counterintuitive, it seems really difficult, it seems to be filled with obstacles and challenges. But those obstacles and challenges are of our own making. So we are the ones who make Buddhist practice difficult. The path is not inherently difficult. It's not inherently challenging. It's not inherently counterintuitive. But we make it that way because we're so deeply attached to our own defilements. So we are attached to our obstacles, which is why they appear. We are attached to our greed, which is why it seems so difficult to practice contentment. We're attached to our anger and hatred, which is why it's so difficult to practice peacefulness. We're attached to mental agitation, which is why it's so difficult to practice samadhi. We're attached to delusion, which is why it's so hard to practice insight. So again, the Buddha is pointing out here that it's not that the path itself is rough. It's not that the path itself is difficult and full of obstacles, but rather it's that when we come at the path with the wrong attitude, then the path looks difficult and challenging because of our attitude. The path itself is smooth, level, peaceful. But when we look at it through the lens of our defilements and delusions, it looks rough and difficult and counterintuitive. But when we realign our inner compass, when we realign our value system to be based on that which is wholesome, that which is righteous, that which leads to awakening, then that's how we see things. And suddenly the path of Buddhist practice is clear, smooth, open. And everything else is what looks rough and unpleasant. And then this final statement, he says, for the noble are smooth amidst the rough. So again, he's saying the nobles are samma amidst the rough. So visama. So here he's using it in the sense of morally good. So those who are righteous, those who are firmly established in the path of rightness, those who are firmly established in what is wholesome. And elsewhere in the sutras, the Buddha talks about this as the noble ones as being the righteous amidst the unrighteous, the good amidst the not good. So it's recognizing that the majority of the world is lost in the rough path, but it's the noble ones who are not lost in what's rough. The majority of the world is unrighteous, but the noble ones are the righteous ones. The majority of the world is entangled in defilement, but the noble ones are not entangled. So that's the end of this sutta. So it's quite a short sutta, but it's one that I find quite delicious. So at this time, if you have any questions or comments, please go ahead and type them in, and I'll answer them as best I can.
Thank you, Bhante. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Michael is very enthusiastic about the sutta. It's a beautiful sutta. I'm glad you chose it. He also shares the last line of the sutta is wonderful for me. It's to just practice in the midst of the challenging chaos of the world. He also said, add a question at the very beginning. Should we interpret Arya as being practicing on the path, such as we, or more narrowly, a stream enterer?
So traditionally, the word Arya is interpreted as meaning someone who has attained some degree of awakening. But in some places in the suttas, the Buddha defines that as also including those who are on the path to stream entry. And then that raises the whole debate about what is actually meant by someone on the path to stream entry. So I would say that, personally, I'm very hesitant to extend the meaning of the word Arya to include people who have not attained some stage of distinction, because then the word starts to lose its specialness, starts to lose its meaning. But I have heard some teachers say that if you're firmly established in Buddhist practice, then you're on the path to stream entry, unless you can be considered an Arya. And I'm just a little hesitant to endorse that interpretation. It seems like it dilutes the meaning of the word a bit too much.
All right, thank you. And Jens is sharing, Bhante, thank you for your teaching. This sutta reminds me of the Anguttara Nikaya 4115, the Tana Sutta, Courses of Action. I found this sutta helpful in viewing actions and motivating. Quote, there is the course of action that is unpleasant to do, but that when done leads to what is profitable.
Yeah.
Great. And Michael is saying, so the message is don't give up, keep on. Thank you, Bhante.
Yeah, don't get discouraged. So Buddhist practice does seem difficult at times, but what makes it seem difficult is our own defilements. So also, as you continue with Buddhist practice, it starts to get easier. Not in the sense that the obstacles are less challenging, but rather that we start to see more clearly the benefits of being on the path, and more clearly the drawbacks of being off the path. So naturally we stay on the path, even though it's difficult. We don't stray from the path because we see clearly that everything else is worse.
Okay.
At least that's me with my hate type approach to things. It's like, yeah, this sucks, but all that other stuff sucks even worse. So that's using the hate mentality to stay on the path. The greed mentality is like, yeah, everything else is nice, but the path is great, top notch, fabulous.
What about the delusion part?
You might notice for the delusion types, you might notice that when you're following the Buddhist path, that your mind has a bit more clarity. And you start to notice that you're not so foggy and hazy when you're on the path.
great. All right. Well, there don't seem to be any comments, any other comments. Probably the words of the Buddha were quite self-explanatory. So perhaps we can have a short morning today, and then we can meet in less than 12 hours for another parami. This evening we will be talking about satcha, truthfulness, which is quite great. And tomorrow we'll take a break from the paramis and from Sutta, and we will be having a special day long for Buddhist global relief. So the theme will be compassion. So we'll have three sessions where we'll be meeting. So 8 a.m. as usual, 2:30 p.m. and then 7:30 p.m. And we will be exploring compassion in action.
Great.
All right. So see you in a couple of hours and have a great, as usual. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.